I'm here with Alexander Mercouris, editor-in-chief of the Duran. Alexander, let's take a look at Boris Johnson and Brexit. That is fast approaching, guys. It is fast approaching. We're August now. Brexit is slated for the end of October. So, Alexander, there's a lot of talk about whether there's going to be a general election in the UK before Brexit, after Brexit. And Boris seems to be taking a very firm and hard stance. Let me read you a title from The Sun. It says, Bojo, no. Boris Johnson says general election is the last thing he wants before delivering Brexit. I quote, Boris Johnson said a general election is the last thing he wants before delivering Brexit, in quotes. Alexander, what do you make of this chatter about a general election before Brexit?
Yes, I think, first of all, that we have to understand what Boris Johnson is saying. Boris Johnson looked at the European Parliament elections back in May. The Conservative Party was almost obliterated during those elections because it didn't deliver Brexit. And what he is saying, and he is, I think, politically absolutely right in this analysis. He says that if the Conservative Party faces the voters again without having delivered Brexit, it will be obliterated all over again. We will see the Brexit Party, led by Nigel Farage, sweeping the country outside London, just as it did in the European Parliament elections. Now, can I say that is also my view? So what Boris Johnson is saying is, I am the leader of the Conservative Party. I am the Prime Minister. I believe in Brexit. But beyond the fact that I believe in Brexit, my task is to save the Conservative Party, save the political system, stabilise it, bringing it back to order. That means that there has to be Brexit on the 31st of October. That means there cannot be a general election before the 31st of October, which might result in the destruction of the Conservative Party. So therefore, I do not want a general election now. I want Brexit to happen first. Now, I have to say, I think his political analysis is flawless. I know a lot of people think that Boris Johnson is a clown, all sorts of things, that he's not serious, that he's frivolous, that he would be a very bad prime minister. He may be all those things, but he's also, and I always said this, fundamentally, deep down, a clever man. And I think he's looked at the situation in Britain, especially in England and Wales, and he has drawn the correct political conclusions. It astonishes me that there is still so much resistance within so much of the Remainer establishment to the obvious truth of what Boris Johnson is saying. Now, I think there's also a personal dimension to all of this, because I think Boris Johnson knows perfectly well that if the Conservative Party goes down in smoke in an election before Brexit happens, so will he. He will obviously no longer be prime minister, and his political career will be over and will have ended in failure. So he's got a personal agenda, but he's also got a broader political agenda also. So he is ruling out a general election as far as he can before the 31st of October. When Brexit is supposed to take place. Now, this, however, is where it gets really interesting, because Boris Johnson is also saying that Brexit must happen on the 31st of October. He has also understood what, again, we have been saying so many times on these programs, that if Brexit is postponed again and again and again, that's going to result in two things. Firstly, growing doubt about whether Brexit will ever happen. And that, let's be very clear, is now transparently the agenda of some people and who want to keep Britain in the European Union. And secondly, a growing crisis, political crisis in Britain, when what people voted for in the 2016 referendum is not happening. So he is now committed to seeing Brexit happen on the 31st of October 2019 to prevent that growing political crisis getting even worse. And he's made it very clear that if necessary, that will be a no-deal Brexit. So we now have Brexit from Boris Johnson in any circumstance on the 31st of October 2019, even if that means a no-deal Brexit and no general election beforehand. And that's his plan.
What are the forces right now, Alexander, within the Conservative Party that are trying to derail Brexit? And how strong is the Conservative Party right now in the overall picture of Parliament? I mean, do they have a strong position?
No.
And are there some powerful forces that are trying to derail Boris Johnson's plans?
Right. Now, this is where, of course, it gets incredibly complicated and very important, very interesting, because, of course, the Conservative Party itself lost its majority in the disastrous June 2017 election, which Theresa May prematurely and completely unwisely called, and which showed her up as this totally ineffectual figure that she actually was. So the Conservatives don't have a majority in the House of Commons. They have a majority of one, because they have a coalition with a Protestant party from Northern Ireland, the Democratic Unionist Party. So only a majority of one, and that's the case because they lost a seat, a parliamentary seat to the Liberals in a by-election which happened in Wales, where, by the way, the Conservative vote held up a lot better than most people had expected in a tight seat. So it wasn't actually, electorally speaking, a disaster for the Conservatives, but it means that they only now have a majority of one. But that's a mathematical majority because, of course, as we all know, there is a group of Conservative MPs. It's not clear how many they are, but most people think it's somewhere between 25 and 40 who are Remainers. They want Britain to remain within the European Union. And their leaders are Philip Hammond, who was the former Chancellor of the Exchequer, in other words, our finance minister, and Dominic Geave, who was previously Britain's Attorney General. And they have been in alliance with the other Remainer parties in the House of Commons, which between them have a very large majority. The great majority of MPs in the House of Commons voted Remain and unquestionably want Britain to remain a part of the European Union. And that has been a major problem all along in seeing Brexit happen. Now, this is where it becomes very interesting, because what Boris Johnson is saying, what he's saying, both to his MPs and to all the other MPs, is, I am going to go ahead with Brexit on the 31st of October, no matter what. If you try to pass any laws to stop me, I'm not going to pay any attention to them, because as far as I'm concerned, those laws are unconstitutional, because Parliament cannot force the British government to do something that it doesn't want to do. And by the way, constitutionally, on this discrete point, he is right. Parliament is not there to usurp the function of the British government. What Parliament can do is change the government. But what Boris Johnson is saying is, if you try to vote my government out in a vote of confidence, I am the Queen's First Minister. I am responsible to the Queen, not to you. I will not resign. I will not let you form an alternative government. What I will do is call a general election, but I will make sure that general election happens after the 31st of October, when Brexit will have already taken place. So he is, in a sense, calling MPs bluff, because he says, you cannot stop me carrying out Brexit on the 31st of October. There is no procedural device that will work to prevent me carrying out Brexit. If you try to vote me out of power, I will not accept that or agree. I have a solid government behind me because I purged all the Remainers, all the top Remainer ministers from it, and all the top ministers are now Leavers, and I am responsible to the Queen, whose first minister I am, not ultimately to you. Now, I have to say again, Boris Johnson, constitutionally speaking, his argument is flawless. No other prime minister in modern British history has defied the majority of the House of Commons in that way. And if you read the British newspapers over the last couple of days, they are in shock about this, with the Remainers completely unsure what to do, because what the ultimate weapon which they thought they had, which is a vote of no confidence in the government, they suddenly realize isn't that ultimate weapon after all.
Okay, so it sounds to me, Alexander, that Boris Johnson is on the right track as far as delivering the Brexit mandate. Yes. Do you see any other tactic that the Remainers may employ in order to derail the October 31st deadline? Any other tactic, or has Boris pretty much sealed things up here?
Right. Well, I mean, there may be certain things.
This is a hard question.
Yeah, it's a very hard question, and I mean, there are very certain questions that they might try to do. I mean, I think one possibility is that if Boris Johnson, as I said, defies a vote of confidence and calls a general election on after the 31st of October, but remains in office as Prime Minister, then, as I said, we are in uncharted political and constitutional territory. And there have been some suggestions, which I don't know that I take terribly seriously, that Parliament will then pass votes to stop taxes being collected, in other words, to try and suffocate the government. But I think the dangers of doing that are so immense. I mean, are they really going to be prepared to have a situation where police officers aren't paid their salaries, where hospitals start closing because they can't get funding, in order to force Johnson out? And what if he simply says no? What if he, again, calls their bluff and says, well, you know, you can do all of this, but I'm still not leaving. I'm still the government. I'm still the Prime Minister. The cabinet is still loyal behind me, and I'm going to press on for this general election after the 31st of October. I think we would be in a huge crisis. I'm also going to say something else. I think this is for Jeremy Corbyn and the leadership of the Labour Party, the nightmare scenario, because the very last thing they want is a situation where they carry out a vote of no confidence in Boris Johnson, supposedly in order to stop Brexit. And then Brexit happens anyway, and then Boris Johnson holds an election in which he says to people in the north of England who have traditionally voted Labour, you voted for Brexit, I have carried it out, Jeremy Corbyn and the Labour Party tried to stop me, I stand by you, I'm offering to spend more money on your hospitals and your schools and your jobs and things. And again, it's the Labour Party that is trying to stop that by suffocating me, by stopping your funding. I think that is a terrible situation for the Labour Party to find itself in. And I think that Jeremy Corbyn, who I think deep down understands this much better than do some of his more fanatical Remainer colleagues in the Labour Party, understands that this would be an entirely forced position for the Labour Party to be manoeuvred into. And I think that though he will face huge criticism from within the Labour Party, in the end, I think he will not fall into what is actually Boris Johnson's trap. And I think if he understands that Johnson is not going to accede to a vote of confidence, he will balk from proposing it. So that's where I think we're going.
All right. Alexander Mercouris, Editor-in-Chief of the Duran. Thank you very much. Guys, if you like this video, click on the subscribe button down below. Click on that notifications bell and smash that like button. Share the channel with everybody you know outside of YouTube. Share it on Gab. Share it on Minds. Share it on Twitter. Share it on Facebook. Share it everywhere. It really helps this channel grow, and we need your help. What else? You can also follow this channel on SoundCloud and on Apple iTunes. So check us out there in audio format. And don't forget, you can help out this channel by donating to us on PayPal, Patreon, and Subscribestar. The links are in the description box down below. And another way you can help us out is by going to the Duran shop, picking up some great merchandise, magic mugs, magic t-shirts, magic everything. You can get it on the Duran shop. And we also have 3 ebooks. We have 2 ebooks on Russiagate. We also have an ebook that we did about a month and a half ago on Brexit as well.
On Brexit, absolutely.
Absolutely. So Alexander, you want to talk about the ebooks? You want to talk about the apparel and the merchandise?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's talk about both. Let's talk about both the ebooks and the apparel and merchandise. The point about the ebooks is that they try to explain simply stories that are far too complicated. The reason Brexit hasn't happened is because there's been a Remainer plot to try and prevent it. Let's be quite clear about this. That is the true story of Brexit. What has happened with that as a consequence of that plot is we have seen massive polarization in the country, in Britain, with pro-Brexit sentiment now sweeping the board outside England, as we saw very vividly during the European Parliament elections, and setting up the situation for the game plan that Boris Johnson is now preparing to play. So that's all explained in that ebook. And again, we were far ahead of the curve on this. We were writing about these possibilities, these risks, way back in 2016, within weeks of the referendum happening. And it's all there in that ebook. Now, the other 2 ebooks are about the equally complicated subject, which is Russiagate. Any subject which is made to look complicated, like Brexit, like Russiagate, is because somebody's trying to cause confusion. Russiagate is very simple. If you look beyond the detail, what it was an attempt by certain powerful people in the United States, in the intelligence community, in the Hillary Clinton campaign, in the Democratic National Committee, in the media, to force Hillary Clinton onto the American people as president of the United States by discrediting her opponent, Donald Trump, by concocting this fiction of an association between Donald Trump and Russia. That's the subject of our first book. The subject of our second book is to show how when that conspiracy, which is what it was, failed, they tried to conceal the existence of that conspiracy by fabricating a completely phony investigation, the Mueller investigation, to try and discover this alleged connection between Donald Trump and the Russians, which they themselves, the deep state, the Democrats, the DNC, the media, had themselves fabricated. And it required the clarity of mind of William Barr, the new Attorney General of the United States, to see the absurdity of all of this and to bring it all to a stop. That's what our ebooks are about. Now, how do we keep our minds clear and sift out all this nonsense and get to the actual heart of these problems? We do it by drinking from mugs like this one. Now, this is a mug with a beautiful Duran mug, 15-ounce mug, and it's got the double-headed eagle of Russia. That's because we've been talking about Russiagate now, but it's exactly like the kind of symbol that you get on the Kremlin's tableware, and it was on the cup that Putin was drinking from at the G20 summit when it attracted so much attention. That's
a beautiful mug too, by the way. For everyone that's watching, it's really, really elegant.
They are stunning mugs. They are really stunning mugs. And as I said, I'm drinking tea from this one at this time. Can I just say, I forgot to mention which teas I'm drinking. This is green tea. This is a nice green tea. So hot, well, it's a sweltering day, so it's a refreshing tea to drink from. And that's the tea I'm drinking from this mug. And we've got lots of mugs with lots of logos. We've got the Alpha Force, we've got Lavrov, we've got our own double-headed eagle, we've got
the Moscow emblem.
Moscow emblem with St. George. So we got wonderful mugs there. We've got wonderful shirts, like this wonderful polo shirt I'm wearing, which is so comfortable on such a sweltering day. I'm about to go out for a walk with my dogs, and this is the perfect thing to wear. And we've got lots of shirts. We've got hats. We've got T-shirts. We've got stickers. We've got amazing things. And the feedback we're getting on our stuff is phenomenal. People love it. So go to the Duran shop, buy our books, buy our merchandise, buy our apparel, buy our mugs, our phenomenal magic mugs. Help yourself and help the Duran, and Alex will tell you how.
Yeah, just look in the description box. You will see a link to the duranshop.com. So pick something up and help out this channel. Alexander Mercouris, Editor-in-Chief of the Duran. Thank you very much. Till next time, everybody. Take care.